Baik, Pak.
Ya, baik,
Ini
selamat
saya
pagi semuanya.
selamat pagi, Pak.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi.
Pagi ini kita akan mendengarkan seminar dari Muhammad Thorik tentang tugas akhirnya. Di nanti waktunya kira-kira 20 menit untuk presentasi dan kemudian dilanjutkan dengan tanya jawab ya. Pertanyaan silakan dari adik-adik semuanya. Silakan Thorik, sudah bisa presentasi. Ini saya rekam jadi bisa dilanjutkan oleh yang lain, bisa lihat nanti ya.
Baik, Pak. Ini saya buka kamera, Pak.
Ya, nggak harus sih, tapi dibuka kamera lebih bagus.
Baik, Pak. Apakah sudah kelihatan?
Sudah kelihatan, silakan.
Oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi semuanya. Good morning, everyone. My name is Muhammad Thorik. Today I would like to present my final year project with the title of Designing an Aerial Flood Victim Detection System Using Deep Learning. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for attending this seminar. I hope that we can learn a thing or two from this presentation. With that being said, let's just start right away. So this is the outline of my presentation today. The background. So Indonesia, flood is considered as a regular natural disaster in Indonesia. According to BNPB, Badan Nasional Penanggulangan Bencana, the natural flood occurs the most in Indonesia, and it is increasing every year. And usually, in times like this, the first responders are the one who are dispatched into the area, and in recent years, they utilize drones to help with their operations, to increase their situational awareness. However, usually they have a lack of human resources, and by using artificial intelligence in the drone, hopefully it could help the operation and increase the effectiveness of the operation. So this is the objective of the research, is to determine the most suitable method to detect flood victims, and then to find the parameters that significantly affect the results. And the third one would be the performance of the proposed method. This is the flowchart. The one that I would like to highlight in this flowchart here is that in the literature study, found a method and methods, and then I compare the methods to build a model, the most optimal model, and then that model is built, and then this report is based from that model itself. This is some basic theory that I think we should know. So computer vision is a field of study to help that trains the computer to see like human see. The problem here is that computer do not see like human. To a computer, digital image is just a matrix of picture elements called pixels. These pixels have value, which represents the intensity from 0 to 255. And here are the classic problems in computer visions, but the one that we will focus on is the object detection here, where the computer will be able to detect all the objects and put the bounding boxes around the object and classify for each object. It's similar to localization, except here is that object detection usually consists of many classes and multiple objects, whereas in localization is only like a single object. And in object detection, there are two types of approaches. The first one is using machine learning, and the second one is using deep learning. Here in this research, we will focus more on deep learning. This is the difference between the artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and CNNs. Machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence where you don't have to program it explicitly to make the machine to learn things. Whereas in deep learning is a subset of machine learning, where the one that I think that some of you may have heard is the artificial artificial neural networks, and usually it requires a large amount of data to be processed. And the terms deep here is just the number of hidden layers that they have. And to be much more focused here is using the CNN. CNN is the convolutional neural networks. It's a type of artificial neural network that is special, that it can be able to analyze visual or like digital image. Here is the uh, convolutional neural networks, the basic architecture of CNN. It's similar to the normal artificial neural network, where we have the input layer and hidden layers, as well as the output layer. The one thing that makes it special is that there is a convolution layer and also pooling layer here. And then we're going to talk about these layers. In convolution, as you can see in this image, the green area is the image, the input image, whereas the yellow boxes here is the filter or the kernel. And then what we do here is that the operation is just multiply between this filter and also the kernel to get the convolve feature. And then as the way that it's being done here is that it's using a sliding window technique where it will shift over to the next pixels, and the number of pixels that it shifts is called the stride. And then as you can see here, the convolve feature is that the image will shrink, and sometimes we don't need that, we don't want that, and usually they add another pixels on the edge is called padding, the amount of pixels added to the edge of the image, so that the image size will remain the same. Another thing is called pooling layer. The pooling layer is similar as the convolution layer, except here is that the purpose is to reduce the size of the convolve feature, so that it can decrease the computational power to by using the dimensionality reduction. There are two types. Max pooling, here you take the largest number, and also average pooling, just take the average pooling. But then I think average pooling is not as used as max pooling. It's seldom used. And then moving on to object detection architecture. One thing that I want to highlight here is that there are two types of stage detector, one stage detector and two stage detectors. Two stage detector are usually more accurate. They are accurate, but then they are very slow. And one stage is the opposite. It is less accurate, but it is significantly much faster. This is one of the architecture of this object detection. Usually there's input, the backbone is the feature extraction, and then you get the head here to classify objects. So that from the previous slides that well, we need to, in our case, speed is very important, and we need to find the balance between the speed and the accuracy so that we don't miss any victims or miss any people, but at the same time we need to have the speed. And then based on my research on that time, YOLO V4 performs better than other algorithms for our case. And it is also much easier to be trained because they let us to train the model using a single GPU rather than using the high-tech computer. And a quick overview of the YOLO algorithm is that it is very different from other algorithm, the approach that they use. The network will, they use a single neural network, and they use this, divide the image into regions like a grid, and you put the bounding boxes and uh, predict the bounding boxes and the probabilities of each region. For example, let's say the center of an object will be put here, and then for that cell it is responsible to detect for that particular object. This is the methodology. Here we have the pre-processing, training, and also the test. The pre-processing will include the labeling the data and resize data and augment the data. And for the test, it's just that you just load the model and the weight, and you just test the model. And for the training, I will explain it in the next page. Here is the flowchart of the training. It's simple. Uh, I make it, I simplify it. The first one you need to do is to define the hyperparameters, and then it's basically an iteration process where the YOLO model will have a loss function, and for every iteration, let's say for 1,000 iteration in YOLO, they save the weight, and every 100 iterations, they will calculate the accuracy. MAP is the accuracy, and I will explain it later. And then when the iteration reach maximum batches, then the training will be stopped. This is the data collection section. In this research consists of 120 images from drone view, and then the it will be split. The data set will be split into two: training set and validation set with 70 to 30% proportion. And then the data type used is secondary data from Okutama. This is because I don't have my own data or my drone. And then using Jupyter Notebook from Colab and also YOLO V4. This is the process where I label the data. I put the bounding boxes around all the objects that we want to be, well, we want the model to detect. And also we need to define the class of those objects. And in this case, we use human. The name of the software that I use is the label image. And from here, we can get this output text file where it shows the the classes, and also the bounding boxes, the coordinate of bounding boxes. In deep learning, it requires a large amount of data. So the more data that you have, the better it is. And hence, it's always recommended to use data augmentation to improve the generalization of your model, and by increasing the variability of your data set. And doing this is by using the distortion, photometric distortion is just changing the saturation or exposure. And then we can use geometric distortion, such as a flip, and also rotate the image, and also other type of data augmentation. For example, in this case, Geology for using a mosaic uh, data augmentation, where they combine 4 or 3 images into one with different sizes. And then here is the evaluation metrics to see how good our model perform. The first one is confusion metric. Confusion metric, as you can see here on the right in the corner, there is a true positive, false positive, and false negative. False negative. There's actually another one called true negative, but we don't really need to focus on that. The true positive here is that it is the predicted box. Our model able to detect the object, and then the object is there, so it is correct. And then for here on the right here is that this is called false negative. That means that the object is there, but our model unable to detect that object. And then for false positive, it's not as straight away. It's not as simple as true positive or false negative. Here is that either the object is not there, but the model detects something, or there is the object is here and the model is will predict somewhere else. And then from here, a matrix, we can get the precision and also the recall, as well as the F1 score. F1 score is the harmonic mean of this precision, based on this precision and recall. And then intersection over union is also widely used in object detection, because usually it will compare the ground truth box with the predicted box. And the more it will intersect, then overlap, then it will be better. And also here that uh, usually object detector also use mean average position to see the accuracy, as well as the frame per second. The higher it is, the better. So in our case, we tried 3 experiments. The first one is using non-flood data set, using a data set where the people are in the middle of a field. And then the second experiment is using the flood data set. And the third experiment is using the same data set, except that we increase the input size. And here is the experimental setup. This one is the collapse settings. We use GPU and using Tesla T4. And here on the right is the hyperparameter that you need to set up prior to the training, such as the batch size and also like maximum batches. Here is the experiment. The first one is the experiment 1. On the chart here on the left, uh, on the image here, there is 2 type of line charts. The blue line is called loss, and the red chart is the MAP, the accuracy. So the graph actually looks like this, supposed to look like this, and it appears that this model actually performed okay with like around 80% of MAP. And this is the table of the result using different iterations. And the best result is the MAP is 90.43%. And then here, experiment 2, we use a different data set. It looks the same, similar, except that here the accuracy is not as good as the previous experiment. It is around 40%, and the best is like 39% here. And the third experiment is same, is using the flood data set, except that now we increase the input size for the training. And here is the accuracy of our model that has been trained is around 43, 44%. And then here we can compare all of these experiments together, and it appears that the experiment 1 achieved better result, and it converged faster than the other two. These two, this experiment 2 and experiment 3, uh, have a similar pattern, except that in experiment 3, the accuracy is actually much better, slightly better than experiment 2. So as we can see here in this slide, there are 6 images. They are the same, the top and the bottom. This is all the training data for each model. And uh, uh, this one, I just want to test whether they're able to detect with the data that they have trained before. Of course, it doesn't mean anything, but just want to check all whether it can be able to detect, and all of them able to detect as expected. Now, moving on to this one, uh, when we compare those images, the one that they're able to detect, with a data that they have never seen before during the training, uh, it gives an interesting result. Here in the model 1, where we train the model using a data set that is not flood, it actually performs much better than the other two. The model 1 able to detect more people here during the flood, but they miss one over here. Model 2 that is trained using flood dataset only able to detect 3 people. And they miss a lot of people here. There are so many false negative here, and we do not want that. And the third one is the module 3. It's similar, except here is that it performs slightly better. There are some people that is not detected here, but then like uh, most of them are still able to be detected. So this is the false negative, true positive, and let's say here, for example, here is the false positive. And then I tried to uh, test the model using when we change the uh, the test image using the training data set from different model, and it appears that model 1 able to detect most of this, but however this model also detect some other things that is not supposed to be there, uh, but they also miss one person right here. And for model 3, uh, it also able to detect almost all of them, except there is one person right here that they are unable to detect for some reason. This is the video comparison of this model 1 and 2, model 1 and 3. Here we can see that the model is unable to detect some people over here. It never reached here. The prediction box never reached here. But then when we see the Model 3, it actually do better because they detect some of the people and also the like false positive, but it detects more people. So here's the conclusion. The method here, the YOLO V4, can be utilized to detect flood victims, and the parameters that affect the performance in this research is the training data and also the input size, where increasing input size will increase the performance, but it will lead to less FPS. The MFP increased from 39.15 to 44, while the FPS decreased from 39 to 38. And then the model trained on flood data set perform worse than non-flood, where the MAP for non-flood is 39.15 and uh, for non-flood is 90.43%. For the future work, there are some research that can be done from this experiment. Here is the effect of the drone altitude and camera angle to the performance, the detection performance. And also the second future work that can be done here is the find a type of data augmentation that can optimally improve the accuracy. And the third one is using a different method, such as SSD, and we compare the result. Thank you. That is all from me.
Ya, terima kasih. Very good presentation. Waktunya mungkin sedikit lebih lama ya dari yang diharapkan. Nah, tapi masih oke. Jadi nanti mungkin sedikit dipercepat di penjelasan tentang metode CNN-nya. Ya, silakan pertanyaan langsung saja, angkat tangan atau open mic mau bertanya silakan. Kalau tidak salah ini mestinya ada absen ya. Absennya ditaruh di chat saja itu.
Oh iya Pak.
Silakan kalau ada pertanyaan, bisa bebas pertanyaannya, menyangkut metodenya maupun hasilnya silakan. Ya, mungkin saya ingin bertanya dulu ya. Jadi kalau kita lihat tadi dari videonya, yang model 3 itu justru bisa detect yang orang berjalan yang tidak di air ya. Nah, itu
Ya betul
juga
Pak.
mungkin menarik itu kira-kira penjelasannya bagaimana itu?
Nah itu saya kurang tahu juga ya Pak. Mungkin karena waktu yang model satu di train itu mungkin itu terlalu overfitting, jadi hanya bisa mendetek orang-orang yang sangat spesifik. Di mana kalau misalnya model ketiga itu tidak terlalu overfitting, karena di model satu itu the accuracy sangat tinggi, jadi patut dipertanyakan sebenarnya.
Ya, mungkin yang menarik untuk diteliti lebih lanjut adalah yang itu robustness ya. Jadi walaupun mungkin modelnya tidak terlalu tinggi, tapi kalau dia itu, tapi F1 skornya kan juga, F1 skornya sama atau beda banget? Kalau MAP-nya kan memang beda banget ya, tapi kalau F1 skornya dari model 1 dan 3 ini bagaimana? F1 skor itu adalah balance antara akurasi dan recall ya, precision dan recall.
Cukup berbeda sih Pak,
Ya.
karena yang eksperimen model 1 itu hampir 80%.
Ya.
Kalau misalnya eksperimen 3 itu sekitar 50%, 0,5.
Oh ya, oke. Nah, mungkin yang menarik adalah ini, memang orang yang berjalan di atas trotoar tadi tidak penting ya, karena dia bukan victim ya. Kalau yang didetek kan yang di dalam air ya, dalam air. Tapi mungkin kalau objektifnya kita ubah, misalnya orang di atap juga dideteksi, atau di atas puing-puing juga dideteksi, nah, mungkin kita bisa exercise lagi, tapi itu bisa jadi riset lanjutan ya. Silakan kalau ada yang mau bertanya.
Saya izin bertanya, Pak.
Silahkan, Jeremy.
Ya, perkenalkan saya Yeremia Kristianto, 136174042. Kak, saya ingin bertanya, ini kan penelitian object detection-nya itu melalui RGB kamera. Nah, saya mau tanya kenapa yang dipakai itu RGB kamera, kenapa nggak misalnya opsi lain ada thermal kamera gitu. Apakah itu akan lebih mudah atau apa alasan spesifiknya yang diteliti itu menggunakan RGB kamera? Itu saja, terima kasih.
Silakan dijawab, Tarik.
Baik, terima kasih atas pertanyaannya. Pertanyaan yang sangat menarik. Di sini, kenapa saya menggunakan RGB kamera? Karena dataset yang ada hanya itu. Saya tidak menemukan kamera thermal, dataset yang ada kamera thermal yang dari drone, hanya yang menggunakan RGB. Tapi menurut saya kalau misalnya ada dataset tersebut, sepertinya itu akan meningkatkan performance dari model kita.
Iya, mungkin itu jawaban yang cukup menarik ya, karena datanya yang menjadi penting ya. Kalau kita misalnya bisa manipulasi foto-foto itu dengan software misalnya, sehingga seakan-akan menjadi data thermal ya, dimanipulasi, ditandain, mungkin itu juga bisa membantu. Tapi itu bisa jadi riset selanjutnya ya, mengatasi keterbatasan data. Terus kalau ini nih apa, RGB itu sendiri setahu saya bisa didekompos menjadi 3 ya. Jadi masing-masing itu dianalisis sebagai R, G, atau B gitu. Kemudian di-combine itu juga ada metodenya seperti itu. Terus saya tidak tahu, YOLO langsung otomatis atau dia hanya mengambil gray-nya.
Langsung RGB sih, Pak.
Oh, sudah langsung RGB ya. Berarti sebenarnya dia sudah didekompos jadi 3.
Iya, 3 channel.
3 channel. Nah, mungkin kalau ada yang mau meneliti dengan cara yang sama, tapi pakai thermal yang dimanipulasi ya. Manipulasi itu maksudnya dicari cara agar gambar RGB itu ditandai, kemudian dimanipulit dengan Photoshop sehingga menjadi gambar thermal. Ya. Itu mungkin bisa jadi satu studi tugas akhir yang menarik juga ya. Karena akan banyak sekali masalah ya, contohnya mungkin penelitian lain yang sedang mau dijalankan itu adalah deteksi spot api ya pada kebakaran ya. Itu juga mungkin bisa perlu menggunakan apa itu data yang harus kita manipulasi karena training datanya terbatas. Ya. Atau misalnya nanti kemudian dipakai untuk surveillance malam hari ya. Jadi kalau yang pakai RGB, yang pakai thermal mungkin kita akan cari data-data surveillance malam hari. Silakan kalau ada pertanyaan lain ya, silakan.
Permisi Pak, saya mau nanya. Halo, mau nanya.
Oh ya, silakan ada Nafi ya.
Ya, saya ada Nafi 1361617. Tarik, I want to ask, why did you use 70 to 30 train test split in your data set? Thank you.
Okay, good question. It's because usually for this type of object detection, usually people either split the image into 80% to 20%. For example, the training data 80% to 20%. However, I don't have that many image data set, so that I only use 70% for this particular research. But then it's still within normal. People also use from 70 to 80%.
Ya, jadi kecukupan data ini memang menjadi penting di machine learning ya. Nah itu mungkin nanti Torik juga bisa nunjukin bahwa setelah di augmentation itu ada berapa, totalnya ada berapa ribu data gitu ya. Sehingga walaupun 70% dari data awal itu sekian puluh begitu atau hanya terbatas, tapi setelah di augmentation itu dia jadi ribuan data itu ya. Itu mungkin bisa ditampilkan ya di slide-nya ya.
Baik, Pak.
Total hasil augmentation-nya. Oke, sekarang pertanyaan dari Faiz Zatur Rahman. Silakan.
Hi, Tariq.
Hi.
Yes. It's okay. I would like to ask Tariq. So you use the CNN. Now, what happens if I have a noisy data set, right? That's my first question. And my second question is if you use a 70-30 train test split, wouldn't that be biased? Can you not maybe reduce the training set to maybe 60-40, or the ratio between the train test split is more to the testing rather than train? That's my question.
Okay. Thank you. For the bias, what was the first one? The first question?
The first question is to do with noise. So what happens if I have noisy data? So maybe a really poor camera?
Yeah, that's the first one, is when during the pre-processing, you need to clean up the data manually by yourself. I haven't really find that one yet. So yeah, I cannot say much about it, but then you can use it manually. And for the second one, for the bias, this is because if it is using less than 70, then it will go underfit. I've tried it before, and the performance is not as good as like 70 to 30% split. And this is very common, actually, 70 to 30%. I also followed what most other people already been done before.
Ya, mungkin yang pertama tentang data yang blur itu bisa juga nanti penelitiannya ditingkatkan atau dilanjutkan dengan data-data yang blur ya. Jadi di blurring, entah pakai Photoshop atau memang data aslinya di blur, lalu kita tagging nih orang-orangnya begitu ya. Sehingga kalau dalam kondisi real nanti, ya misalnya lagi kondisi banjir biasanya kan cahaya juga redup ya, masih mendung dan segala macam. Nah itu masuk akal juga untuk bisa mendeteksi kondisi buram ya. Itu menarik itu kalau ada yang mau melanjutkan untuk riset di situ ya. Kemudian yang kedua tentang kecukupan data itu sebenarnya memang bukan 70-30-nya, tapi 70% itu sudah berapa puluh atau berapa ratus ribu data augmentation-nya kalau sudah dibikin ya. Jadi yang penting adalah kecukupannya, itu ibaratnya anggaplah standar idealnya paling tidak 100.000 gambar gitu ya. Nah, kemudian untuk testingnya sekian puluh. Jadi kalau dalam persentase kita mungkin tidak punya patokan ya, tapi kalau di dalam angka kita punya patokan. Jadi misalnya sekian ribu data training gitu. Ya, saya pernah juga melakukan riset dengan machine learning itu karena datanya cuma beberapa ratus sumur gitu ya, itu untuk guess ya. Jadi kita ambil data itu sampai ditambah dengan data-data yang tadinya tidak ada itu, sehingga bisa mencapai puluhan ribu sampai ratusan ribu data. Nah itu memang meningkatkan precision recall ya, disebutnya precision recall kalau di dalam machine learning itu bukan akurasi ya, tapi precision recall. Precision recall itu ukuran untuk sejauh mana bisa detect benda yang sesungguhnya. Recall itu seberapa banyak target yang ada itu bisa kedetek gitu. Misalnya ada 10 orang, kalau terdetek 6 berarti recall-nya cuma 60% gitu. Kalau precision itu, kalau itu orang beneran orang gitu, bukan tiang lampu dikira orang gitu, itu precision ya. Ya, itu pertanyaan menarik, bisa dimasukkan juga ke slide mungkin ya. Kalau dengan 70% itu setelah augmented itu saya sudah dapatkan data training sebanyak sekian ribu gitu. Oke.
Permisi Pak, saya mau nanya Pak.
Ya, silakan Brian ya.
Okay, hello Tariq. I want to
Hi.
ask, how did you get the data set and how many images did you actually get from the source before you actually applying those variations, like the raw images that you get from the source of the data set?
Okay, thank you. For the source, I just use Google to find the data set, to find the openly available data set that is you can use. And then for the number, the raw images is around 50 images, I think around 50 images. Then from there, I can use the data augmentation to improve to increase the number of data that will be feed into the training.
Okay, thank you Tariq for the answer. And then how many images did you do the, I mean, in the end, how many images did you get after the data augmentation, after you apply those variations to the images?
Okay, thank you. So from the data augmentation that I have done is less than 500.
Okay, thank you. I think maybe it would be a better idea if you actually get more those raw images from this, from Google or anywhere, because I think if you train the data set on all these variation, I think it would affect to more. It would, get more. The model would be more overfit, because as what Faiz said, that it would actually pick up the noises and the unimportant details of the variations instead of actually detecting the human in different situations. So I guess it would be better if you get more data set from the source, and so you actually have more different variations, like real variations of, like, for example, if the human is in under the building or something, so you would actually be more robust instead of you know the model picking up those unimportant details of the human. So you could probably use web scraping techniques, so you can automate the collecting the data set from Google, like like for example in Python you can use Selenium and other stuff, so you could actually get more robust model. That's all.
Okay, thank you for the input. Actually, I've tried the web scraping, but then for my case here is that to detect object from the drone, that there are not any good images to be used, because there are not many basically. That's why I find it quite difficult to find the proper data. And also in like similar research in this similar research using the drone, they use their own drone basically instead of relying from the internet and using secondary data. Usually, the similar research using their own drone to get their training data. But then I will try to do what you have mentioned previously.
Thank you Tariq.
Ya,
Thank you,
terima
Brian.
kasih ya. Sarannya cukup membantu. Saya baru ingat bahwa kita juga bisa generate training datanya itu dari video footage ya, dari drone ya. Misalnya di YouTube ada banyak video tentang banjir. Nah, kemudian diekstrak frame-nya, lalu dipilih beberapa gambar yang agak berbeda gitu ya dari sekuensinya itu. Nah, itu kemudian bisa dijadikan sebagai input data. Karena dia itu video biasanya kan jumlah frame-nya cukup banyak ya. Jadi nanti bisa diambil sebagai bentuk variasi input, lalu kita augmented jadi dia lebih banyak lagi. Itu mungkin gimana, Torik sudah melakukan juga ya?
Ya, saya sudah melakukannya, tapi kebanyakan video drone saat banjir itu lebih banyak seperti situation awareness, Pak. Di mana di sana cuma menunjukkan banjir, daerah banjir, tidak menunjukkan orang-orang yang berada di banjir tersebut.
Oh iya,
Itu
betul.
permasalahan dari video-video YouTube yang drone saat banjir, Pak.
Ya, betul.
Tapi saya menemukan dan sudah saya masukkan juga ke dataset saya yang ada.
Ya, ini untuk riset berikutnya jadi cukup menarik ya, bahwa kita mengantisipasi kurangnya data. Nah, karena masih banyak riset yang similar dan penting ya. Contohnya misalnya untuk deteksi dari korban gempa bumi, itu pasti beda lagi ya. Puing-puingnya bentuknya beda, kemudian karakter dari ininya, lingkungannya beda. Kalau flood kan datar ya, kalau di grayscale itu jadi datar. Kalau puing-puing kan dia bisa beda lagi ya. Jadi kalau mau riset lanjutannya nanti bisa yang lebih rumit datanya itu bisa gempa ya, atau bisa yang lain-lain. Ya, saya kira cukup bagus juga jawabannya. Silakan kalau ada pertanyaan lain.
Hello,
Torik,
hello.
ask one more
Faris ya, silakan Faris.
Yeah, Torik.
Hey,
This is Faris. Yeah, this is Faris. Yeah, so since you're doing the flood one, so I'm wondering if I'm wondering if it's more flexible. Like in one go in one search you can do earthquake, tsunami, and flooding, and as Bahiro said, the characteristic is different for earthquake, and they're harder to detect, and not to mention they're more camouflage. How can you deal with that?
Okay, Are you done, Faris?
Yeah,
Is there any more to add?
that's it.
Okay, thank you for the question. Actually, it depends. For example, as Faiz said previously, because of the data set itself, it can overfit the data, the model. If we use a large amount of data, for example, using other sources, then we can generalize the model better. That it can be used for different type of mission. But then, as for now, I only focus on the flood itself for one type of mission. But hopefully, in the future, maybe we can improve this model to be able to detect like a much more general case.
Oh yeah, and there's one more thing. Maybe in the flood thing, maybe you can try to detect on someone bringing attention to the drone, like I need help, I'm drowning.
Yes. Thank you, Faris.
It's also crucial. When someone needs attention, they direly need it.
Okay, Faris.
Yeah.
Thank you for your suggestion.
Ya, oke, itu idenya menarik ya.
You're welcome, buddy.
Jadi ada sebenarnya saat ini kita mungkin deteknya masih pakai laptop ya. Nah, hasil modelnya tidak bisa ditaruh di drone-nya. Jadi drone transmit video atau rekaman videonya segera diproses ya, ada delay nggak apa-apa. Nah, nanti kita bisa switch di laptop itu detect untuk kasus apa gitu. Jadi misalnya ketika kasusnya banjir ya dia pakai modul banjir. Kalau kasusnya adalah gempa bumi, dia gempa bumi. Kalau gunung api ada, itu bisa gunung api dan seterusnya gitu ya. Nah, tapi ada juga yang sebenarnya menarik di desain adalah yang ditanam di drone-nya ya, itu bisa dipakai untuk missile sebenarnya ya, kalau misalnya dia menjejak pesawat atau apapun itu. Tapi itu beda topik kalau yang jadi dia harus modelnya kecil, spesifik, mungkin case-nya agak beda gitu ya. Kalau misal detect pesawat kan background-nya langit biru atau abu-abu atau mendung ya, terserah itu ya. Tapi relatif homogen gitu. Nah, mungkin akan beda lagi. Sehingga model itu cukup kecil untuk dimasukkan ke embedded system ya. Tapi kalau yang sekarang ini kita fokusnya untuk SAR ya, untuk search and rescue. Jadi kita bisa switch beberapa model dengan mode yang digunakan. Faiz tadi mau nanya, Faiz Izzatur Rahman. Mau nanya lagi?
Yeah.
Silakan.
Tariq, I'm interested with the software you use, right? In the software you used how did you determine your hyperparameters? Is it automated or did you do it by brute force, or can you maybe optimize it?
I'm sorry, Faris. Can you repeat?
That's my question.
I cannot get what you asked. It's about the hyperparameters, is it?
Sorry. Yeah, in the software, can you automatically tune it, or how do you determine your hyperparameters in the software?
So basically, there's a configuration file that you can change the hyperparameters that you want that can affect the training prior to training. But so you just change it manually in this case from the configuration file.
Is there maybe an optimizer in the software that you use that can basically give you the best hyperparameters? Is it there in the software?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
For YOLO, for this type of YOLO, I don't think they have the optimizer yet.
Okay.
Or the
Thank you.
hyperparameter tuning. So you just have to do it manually and try it, experiment one by one, probably.
Ya, silakan ada pertanyaan lagi. Sudah 5 menit kita untuk diskusi. Ya, jadi ini kita memulai riset untuk detection. Ya, nah mungkin gambarnya begini ya. Kalau saya melihat bahwa machine learning itu bisa dipakai untuk 3 hal yang sangat basic ya. Jadi pertama itu adalah prediksi. Prediksi itu contohnya misalnya mesin kira-kira akan rusak kapan setelah dia punya ciri-ciri tertentu ya. Kalau yang mengambil topik maintenance mungkin akan tertarik untuk menggunakan machine learning untuk prediction analysis. Kemudian yang kedua itu otomasi. Jadi kita ingin mengotomasi sesuatu, jika dia parameternya berubah, maka dia akan diubah lagi sehingga hasil keluarannya akan sesuai ya. Misalnya ya banyak ya hal-hal yang bisa diotomasi ya. Jadi kita melihat korelasi antara output hasil result akhir dengan input. Nanti kita bisa mengotomasi input ini supaya outputnya bisa terkendali gitu ya. Nah, kemudian yang ketiga itu detection. Nah, ini yang sedang dilakukan oleh Tariq ini detection system ya. Detection system itu banyak sekali dipakai ya untuk security, untuk hazard mitigation gitu ya. Itu termasuk fraud detection ya. Nah, detection itu macam-macam, ada semacam anomaly detection seperti terjadinya kasus fraud di bank gitu ya. Atau yang visual detection. Nah, ini adalah yang visual detection. Jadi bisa dipakai ya. Misalnya untuk teman-teman struktur, dia ingin inspeksi pesawat ya dengan drone dan kemudian ada visual detection-nya. Dia bisa menandai mungkin ada anomali penyok atau ada crack atau ada something yang unusual ya. Itu juga bisa dilakukan gitu ya. Jadi terbuka kemungkinan banyak riset ya. Nah, mumpung ada yang sudah mempelajari, nanti sebelum Torik pergi kemana gitu ya, itu mungkin bisa minta belajar gitu ya, minta belajar. Dan tidak harus topiknya di operations ya, ini kan topik operations karena di DOPPT ya. Tapi kalau Anda di aerodynamics ya, Anda juga pasti bisa pakai itu dengan Pak Pram misalnya. Di structure bisa dipakai juga ya. Tinggal kita klasifikasikan saja kira-kiranya seperti PAD tadi ya, PAD ya. Jadi PAD itu prediction, automation atau detection ya. Kira-kira seperti itu ya pemanfaatannya. Masih ada waktu sedikit kalau ada pertanyaan terakhir. Kalau tidak ya kita akan tutup dulu. Ya. Ya. Saya kira sudah cukup ya. Nanti mungkin teman-teman bisa minta Torik untuk ngajari hal-hal yang dasar untuk bisa melakukan riset yang similar ya, walaupun nanti kasusnya bisa beda ya. Sebelum nanti susah lagi mau yang ngajari harus belajar sendiri dari nol lagi, lihat-lihat di YouTube dan di internet kan butuh waktu juga itu ya. Nah itu. Silakan, mungkin ada kata penutup dari Torik, silakan.
Thank you everyone for attending this seminar. I hope that all of us can learn something from this seminar and have a great day basically. Thank you.
Ya, terima kasih Tarik. Selamat pagi semuanya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.